Hello everyone. This is a series of videos about making a Coca application in the real world. As you can see here, in this tutorial series, we'll be making this songs player, which is like a simple version of iTunes music player. In fact, we simplify it into a subset of features and also build it with a nice, well-designed theme in our application. Over this tutorial, we'll be covering the setup of the application architecture. We'll be using the coding style according to GitHub and Ray Renderich. Also, we'll be setting up the folder structure, library, dependency, and also the testing codes of running this application. As a preview, the tutorial today will be talking about the features of this app and also set the basic structure of the application for our whole tutorial. As you can see, this is a simple song player. Look closely, it has mainly three parts. The top one here is the player. The top left side is the playlist, and the right side is the list of songs. We will be building this as a desktop application, which shows within a window, and also it will have a little widget which shows from the menu bar. As you may see, this is a simplified version. The design itself is not finalized as well. I will be modifying some of the layouts along the tutorial, but I will show you what I have been added or removed along the time. So now take a look on the Xcode project. I have just created this with brand new project, which is a non-document based app, and it is using a storyboard. I will be using cocoapods as the library dependency management. So as mentioned in a previous tutorial, I will set up a workspace through cocoapods that includes the main application, also the pods project. So I will just close this application now and go to the terminal. Here, as you can see, the terminal, if I check with the Git status, which keeps track of the previous commits to the project, it is brand new and it doesn't have anything committed yet. So I will just commit the first time. I will show you the way I work between Xcode and also command line over this tutorial as well. And I will give it tags each day in order for you to load up the specific tag, which means the specific day, and do your own test and run based on the tutorial as well. So now Git status would say the project is clean. And then I'm going to create a pod file, which will be used by CocoaPod. As said before, I have set up a template pod file, which I can just copy. Remember to change the target name. In this case, I am currently calling my application as a CocoaSwiftPlayer. Just a name that lets you know it is a Coca application written in Swift and working as a player. since we will be including the unit test and UI test later on, I will just include both targets here. For this application, we will be working on the application itself first and then add the test later on. But in a real-world situation, you may consider doing TDD or BDD, which is test-driven development and behavior-driven development. In those cases, you may want to write the test case first, and then write your code to pass through the so-called red-green refactor workflow. But in our case, as for learning purpose, we will start with building the main application and then add the test cases later. I have just created the pod file for this application, and then I'm going to include the first pod that I will be using. We can check out cocoapods.org to see is there any cool stuff that we can use. For instance, I am thinking about running the application and import the songs from iTunes through the iTunes framework. I will need a space to store the content, which means a database. Instead of using the default core data, I will be using a third-party library on database, which is called Room. Room has a version for Swift application, and I would want to use this Room Swift. In order to start using it, it doesn't show here in the CocoaPod, but we can visit the Room website and look at the documentation. As we are currently using Swift 2.1.1 in the latest Xcode, the way to add into our library using CocoaPod is shown here. And remember that as we have already, but you have to use frameworks, because all the latest libraries importing through Xcode and CocoaPods would be converting into frameworks before using in our application. And I will just copy this part. As the library I want to use. Save and exit, and then run pod install. This will download. This will first check the dependency of the library I have added to the pod file, and then download the related library, and lastly, and back to our current workspace. It may take some time, but now it is done, and it also shows the version we are taking. As I didn't specify the version, and it is the first time downloading the library, it will be using the latest stable version. Room Swift is depending on some other libraries. For example, its internal Room core. So CocoaPods would help us to resolve all the necessary, which means dependent libraries, and include that into our current project as well. This has been taking some time, and we just fast forward, and now it is finished with the workspace file generated. I could open the workspace by typing here with the name provided. Now the project is created. And now I can also access the pod file inside Xcode. I will do a commit to Git again. Room will be used later on when we have the iTunes frameworks in place and also loading the songs from iTunes library. Now it's time to do the second step, which is to set up the folder structure within the Xcode project. We will be using the traditional MVC style in this project. MVC means model, view, and controller. Model refers to the data storage, and in this case will be the database using ROM. The view part is more intuitive, is whatever we see, and mostly is related to the storyboard. C is the controller. It sits between model and view. It passes through the data to the view and then sends requests to the from the view to the model in order to retrieve related information. There may be some business logic in it as well, and we'll be running those inside the controller. So we are going to set up the related group inside Xcode. Say models, views, and in Xcode in this case, the controller is generally called as view controllers. So I will be setting view controllers as well. And I will be having some helper classes and managers as well. So I will be setting these as well. Although Xcode's grouping method within Xcode is different from those folders in the physical folder structure, but when we create a file, we try to put those files in the corresponding folder as well. Say, for example, if I'm now creating a model, and say it is a general model object without using ROM yet, and this is a subclass of NS object. Say I would want a song model like this. In terms of Xcode group, we want to store it inside the models. In terms of the physical location, we want to store in a folder called models as well. So I'm creating a new folder with models like this and save it inside. So it will be easier to reference both in Xcode and in the Finder as well. We'll be setting other classes later on when we create those objects or classes. But for now, we'll stop here after creating those basic structures. Remember to commit the code, and I will see you tomorrow.